Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jason Mackey's First 10, a short version podcast talking all things Pittsburgh sports. Today is Tuesday, January 7th, and we have a lot to talk about. I want to talk about Steelers, Ravens, and what a win for the Steelers might look like and what that would entail. Penguins at the halfway point. They take on the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight, 41 games in. Want to weigh in on what has been surprising, what has been not so good, and what they might need to change in the second half of their season. Our lead topic today, though, leads into Penn State, Notre Dame in the college football playoff semifinals. I might be crazy, but I want to talk a little bit about why I think Penn State can win this all. Yep. A little bit surprising there, but they got a good draw. We'll get into all of that. First, want to remind you, though, that this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. For over 40 years, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped injury victims answer that question. Whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with the insurance companies, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped over 75,000 people handle what's next. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. All right, Thursday night, 7:30 on ESPN, I believe Penn State and Notre Dame will kick it off. I don't think it's crazy to think that Penn State can win this game. I don't think it's crazy to think that Penn State could go on and beat either Ohio State or Texas. They meet in the other semifinal. Now, why do I think that? Generally speaking, I don't think Notre Dame's that good, and that's not a slight against Notre Dame as much as it is. This is not a behemoth that you can't even think about beating. Let's start with their offense. Riley Leonard is their quarterback, a Duke transfer. It's not exactly elite throwing the ball. There's an opportunity here for Penn State to make Notre Dame one-dimensional. I think the Nittany Lions can do it. Riley Leonard has averaged 170.2 yards per game this season, topping out at just 229. They don't throw the ball a ton. It's not a high-volume passing offense. They get by on sort of the group, and they run it well. Riley Leonard can move a lot. He's got great mobility, but again, this is not a machine that can't be derailed. I'm looking for a good metaphor there, but you know what I mean. In the quarterfinals, they beat Georgia. Okay, that's an impressive win. Georgia's been really good. Their past two bowl wins, I read this, have been by 118 combined points. But Carson Beck was out in the last one. They got Gunnar Stockton instead. Jeremiah Love is banged up. He's been really good for them. He's not at 100%. So what if Penn State can slow down that rushing attack? It's been pretty impressive. That's what they did to Ashton Jeanty of Boise State, right? Really owned the line of scrimmage, did a fantastic job there. I think Penn State can do that again. On the flip side, Penn State has run the ball as well as, if not better than any team in the country over this last little while. I love their 1-2 punch, Nicholas Singleton, Kaytron Allen. Only two backs in the country that have each gone over 1,000 yards. That's tough to stop. In Notre Dame, I think they're 34th in the country in rushing defense. There's a potential area where the Nittany Lions can exploit. If you watch the Boise State game, you also saw Drew Allar at various points look absolutely incredible. And I think that's where he's at right now in his career trajectory. I'm talking about the throw to Tyler Warren, the throw to Amari Evans. He can really drop it in. Now, there are bouts of inconsistency, certainly. It's not perfect, but he can do that over the next two games. Nothing is stopping him. I also think back to that first game against Ohio State at Beaver Stadium. That was there for the taking for Penn State. They do a couple things differently. They win that game. Remember, they could not gain a single yard. Tyler Warren had a run down to the 3-yard line. They get 3 cracks. They gain 2 yards. Then 4th and goal from the 1, they throw a pass to Khalil Dinkins. I would hope that they can execute that differently this time around. Then Ohio State gets the ball back, 5:13 to go, and they basically run out the clock. They don't give it back to Penn State. I'm not sure with how Penn State's rush defense has evolved that happens this time around. So that's why I think this matchup could be different. It's also not necessarily with Ohio State. I know I think that way. Probably you think that way. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was Texas. Quinn Ewers has been very good. Will Howard, Ohio State's quarterback, has never beaten Texas. Remember, he was at Kansas State before. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be an intriguing matchup, and I'll be watching that right along with you. Want to take a short break, and we will be back with a little Penguins talk on the other side as we meet the Penguins at the halfway point. Are you ready for an escape from the everyday? The Bradenton area on Florida's west coast is welcoming visitors. Our world-famous beaches are being restored to their pristine states. Beloved island businesses are bouncing back faster than expected. And our signature Floribbean cuisine is just as fresh as ever. Don't wait. Start planning your visit today at BradentonGolfIslands.com. All right, so if you look at the numbers for the Penguins, they're actually below last year's team and the pace the Penguins were at thus far. That doesn't surprise me so much because think about the run that the Penguins made at the end of last season to get into the playoffs. Do they have another one of those in them? And I'm not sure they do. Now, we are going to have to learn quite a bit before the NHL trade deadline. Some water is going to have to find its level. They've made improvements right now through 41 games. The Penguins are 17, 17, and 7 for 41 points. Now, they have dropped 4 of 5, and they're 10, 5, and 3 since November 26th. That's about the marking point of their season. Now, I give the Penguins credit. They've shown some signs of life. Early on in the season, we didn't know if they were going to be able to defend better, play a more responsible game, that sort of thing. And they've done that. Now, I know they blew the 2-goal lead the other night. That's not good, slipping back into some old habits. And this is not a finished product, right? This is not a completely consistent team. But I do feel better about some stuff we've seen when it comes to ancillary scoring. Brian Rust has been healthy. He's been very good. As long as he's on the ice, I like his chances of getting 30 goals, and I like what he's been able to do on that top line. Ricard Raquel has been maybe their best offensive player, certainly leads them in goal scoring. I think they've seen some guys at various times step up in depth roles. Michael Bunting has been a pleasant surprise after a slow start. And some winger, Blake Lizotte, has been solid in the bottom 6 role. They've gotten more depth than I think they've had. Now, one problem, while Sidney Crosby has been good, and I'm not so focused on his goal scoring, I don't think that's bad. 42 points, 41 games, I'm good with it. That would be another point per game season for Sid. I think the goal total will come around. Certainly a little more worried about Evgeni Malkin, 8 goals in 41 games, had 27 each of the last 2 seasons. That, to me, is something in the second half that needs to change. They need to get more out of Gino. That's an area where, he's done it. I don't expect Gino to have a 40-goal season, but I don't expect him to be on pace for 16 either. That's too late, too low, and that's something that needs to change. Special teams-wise, it's kind of emerged as an identity of the Penguins. PK is about 82%. You'll take that. Power play, 25.6. It's been a top 5 power play for a lot of the first half. I think David Quinn deserves a lot of credit. I think Mike Sullivan does too, for splitting up the units and sort of simplifying that a little bit. So if those things can continue, I really like it. Now, the goaltending, that's been the wildest roller coaster of the Penguins so far, right? And I just realized in depth scoring, I forgot to mention Philip Tomasino and some of the bump that he has given the Penguins. And you might laugh, but Tomasino's arrival in his scoring, now he's out week to week with a lower body injury, mind you, but it has coincided with the Penguins' success. All right, so the goaltending is the part of the team that we didn't get to, probably the most important part of the team, and that has not found its level. It has not found what you would expect. Here's the deal. They're paying Tristan Jarry 5.3, whatever it is, to be a difference maker, not to be a timeshare guy, not to be inconsistent, not to be, occasionally he shows up and you feel good about it for one night, and then he goes out there again and blows up, gives up an early goal, something like that. For the Penguins to go anywhere, for them to build on this first half that was inconsistent, okay, has them there. They're not completely out of it. They showed signs of life. It has to be Jarry, the same as it was down the stretch last season. Ned did it in 23-24. It's got to be Jarry this time around. He has to catch fire. I wrote this at the beginning of the season. He has to be the difference maker. I thought he would be the difference maker, and right now I look like an idiot. Wasn't the first time, won't be the last. But Jarry has to pick it up. They have to get more out of the goaltending position if they're going to make a run. And, right now they're in a tenuous spot in the final playoff spot. It kind of depends on who's playing, who has games in hand, that sort of thing. But it's not crazy to think that the Penguins could get into the playoffs. I still think they could win a round if all things go correctly for them, and we will find out. Question I've been pondering as we switch over to Steelers for the final topic. If they win in Baltimore, if they would somehow pull this off, I think it would obviously take a lot of heat out of a hot kitchen, to quote one Penguins announcing legend, but, it would quell some of the frustration surrounding them. So what would that win look like? What would the Steelers have to do? The last time in Baltimore, the Ravens obviously ran the ball all over them. Derrick Henry, chief among that group. What they have to do is get in Lamar Jackson's head, and they have to do it with pressure, whether that's TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Even Keeanu Benton doesn't matter. Maybe some blitz packages, whatever. They cannot be passive in this game. They need to come after him. They need to force him into bad decisions. If there's any saving grace for the Steelers here, it's that Lamar Jackson, remember, hasn't played particularly well against them. The last game was an aberration. He has struggled mightily. He's played the worst against the Steelers as he has, that against any NFL opponent. He hasn't played worse against anybody than he has the Steelers. Lamar also hasn't been great in the playoffs. That's not to diminish Lamar. Again, tremendous quarterback, two-time MVP, all that. But the performances in the playoffs have been different. And a lot of times it's because of a high rate of turnovers, maybe fumbles, forcing passes. The Steelers need to do that. They cannot be passive. They cannot sit back and play coverage. They need to go after Lamar. They need to take that chance. And I want to see them blitz them. I want to see them get a pass rush. I want to see them, again, force Lamar Jackson into making those decisions, because I think there's at least a chance that they're not the right ones. All right, well, you made the right decision by watching this. Make sure you like and subscribe. You can get this and all of our plenty of our content on the Post-Gazette North Shore Drive podcast and YouTube network. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up a little Pitt Duke. It's an interesting one. Excited to watch that and write a column off it. Thanks for watching First 10, everybody.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.